Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. As entrepreneurs, we're always doing these creative ideas and have this great insight into something we want to do to create for the future that's going to be better for the world, right? But lots of great ideas get stuck in our heads, and very rarely do we have an idea that gets, an idea that we want to grow on and to take to the world without having some great financial setups and responsibilities. As much as having an idea is great, right? We got to have the right financial skills to be able to develop those ideas. And today's guest, Tejal Shah, was really going to help guide us down that path and really start to set up your future development. And really, she's got a great way of taking entrepreneurs and guiding them into financial responsibilities and a path that really helps them develop their ideas and report to their community, their investors, and as alike. So I'm excited about having our show. Tejal, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm very glad to be here.
As we start to look at the financial responsibility of an entrepreneur, we get money in multiple ways. We've got, tech companies that will have a large investment from somebody, and they'll say, "Hey, look, we have an idea. Here's our idea. We've got this roster of people who've done this before. Here's what we're doing." We now get an investment from somebody. Or maybe we're a small investor, or we're a small entrepreneur. We got an idea that we're growing. We're taking two sticks and we're rubbing together. Both of them come with some need to manage our finances in this. And let's start talking about how do we start taking people down that path, and what the entrepreneur should be thinking about as we develop these ideas.
Yeah. Anthony, what I've seen in my time is if we focus, or when we focus on building trust with our investors or constituents, it could be customers, it could be suppliers, it could be employees within the company. When we focus on building trust with them, that is where the concept of financial reality and financial responsibility really gets ingrained in the entrepreneur. There are various ways when one looks at it as to, there is, and you'll hear this in the accounting world all the time. There's cash-based accounting, there's accrual-based accounting, there's US GAAP, there's SEC. All of those are platforms, according to me, which create a base where communication can start.
Well, and that's the part that it's hard as an entrepreneur. Like, I just want to go get my idea. I want to get my idea. I've started lots of companies. I've had lots of great ideas. But as much as, going to market and telling the world about what you want to do and bringing your passion to it, right? If the structure behind it falls apart, very rarely can you be successful on the other side of it. And as we start to look at the different systems for setting that up, most entrepreneurs know very little about it. And, having a company like you that can come in and be an interim CFO, for me, what's been great about having this kind of relationship is that I can now have, as much a mentor and coach and guidance for somebody that maybe I couldn't afford on a full-time basis, right? Bringing a fractional CFO in like yourself to help guide me through what could be some, tricky waters to, mapping this out, feels comfortable. So as I start to work with a fractional CFO, what are some of the things that we start to do together? Where do we start? What's my first meeting is going to look like with you?
Yeah. So the first meeting would be a discussion where I'm trying to find out all about what Anthony wants to do, all about what the entrepreneur wants to do. Okay, you have a tech company, you have a selling widgets company, you have a manufacturing company, you have an outsourcing company. First, we try and understand the business as to what the entrepreneur is trying to do. Then we try and glean out the value drivers for him. What are the key value drivers for him? Is it people? Is it his supply chain? Is it the tech that he is inventing? What is he going to need? And then we start that communication as to, all right, here is what I'm hearing. Here are the key things that you need to be tracking on an ongoing basis. Am I interpreting that right? And that starts the dialogue as to, oh, you know what? Yeah, for us, people are key. For us, how we take care of them for us, technology as to how we are going to progress the technology, all of that is key. All right, then how do we start tracking them? That's what we kind of start. That's where we set our base template on.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Most of us entrepreneurs have very little. Oh, great key. When you start thinking about this stuff, they get sleepy. I get sleepy. I don't want to. I check out. But I know something that once we start setting up financial impeccability as a company, right? As I really start to look at, okay, what are my drivers, right? What are the key drivers? At the end of the day, I've got to make payroll. Now, look, if it's where I'm the small entrepreneur just getting started, what are my direct drivers to making sure that payroll happens every week? Right, I've got this big vision. I want a $100 million company. I want to do this great. I want to go to this, this big organization. Great, but what happens if I don't make payroll next week? Right, all that stuff sends an entrepreneur off, and some that'll take you out faster than a bad idea.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that having, or maybe you've got this big idea, and now you've got an investor who's going to come in and, hey, look, I've got you $5 million worth of investment. If I don't look at my financial impeccability and build trust with my investor group, right? They can see, all right, here's what all of a sudden I start showing up with a brand new car, and they start looking at me going, okay, what's going on with my investment here? Why, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You lose trust with your investor.
You lose trust. Yeah.
Yeah. And the whole game's over, right?
Yeah. The whole game's over. And also I would say that if one is not able to communicate, so for example, let's take an example where you've received an investment from an investor. If you are not able to communicate what you are doing with his money, and if you are not able to reflect that in your operations, what has happened in the month, and your financials, if they don't align, if they don't speak the story, you've dented the relationship.
Yeah. Right. They're like, great. I love the idea, but I'll pull my money back. I'll run for the hills, and you've lost it. But just on the other side, likewise, if I can do the opposite, if I can create financial impeccability, they can see, look, here's the people I brought on. Here's what we're paying them. Here's what our payroll is. Here's where the cost of goods are. Here's where my office is. Here's what we're doing on a daily basis to achieve the goal we promised you. Right. And they can start to see the advancements of it. I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Right. I want to show my investors, I want to show them everything that I'm doing. Right. Yeah. I'm not here just to show them the good stuff and hide the bad stuff. I think sometimes that creates long-term trust. So we're going to really dive into that part right there. So start looking at the accounting basis. We've talked. So I think we got trust. Like, look, if I don't create trust with my investors, or if I don't create trust with my employees, if I don't create trust with the clients that I'm going to be working for, that, hey, I'm a financially stable and fiscally responsible organization, right? That in today's world, that has got to be baseline, right?
Yep. So I'd say set that base, digest those financials, and then communicate those financials to your investors. Two things happen over there. One is, I don't know if I've shared this with you, one of the concepts which I absolutely kind of are ingrained in me is value leakage. The minute you go ahead and you take your time and your resources away from something that is your core competency, and you're struggling to do something else, that's value leakage. So if you're figuring out what your financials are, if you can't speak very clearly and articulately to them, if you cannot say exactly what has happened in your company, and you don't know how to say it, that's value leakage. Let me come in and help you. So your fractional CFO is the person who is going to, fractional, interim, CFO, whoever, depends on the scale of the company. They're going to come in and they are going to help you tie your operations and what has happened in the company during that time to what is being reflected in your financials. Are they aligning? If they are not, they need to, let's go finding out why they are not aligning. Where have the slip-ups happened? We figure it out. We see to it that we record things so that it is reflecting what the operations and what the company has performed, whether it is a true reflection of what the company has performed. And then we step out and we present those financials. All right, this is what your financials for the month are, your quarter are, your 6 months are, any period that you want to take a look at.
Well, I'm right after this meeting, I meet with a group of accounting people with one of the companies I own, and we're going to talk about, in the GC world, it's a general contracting portion of my world, and we're going to talk about, it's the end of the month. You've got a couple of days to the end of the month closes out, and I can tell you that one of the places that we get support on is that we learned, through our CFO experience of having, where do we have leakage, right? Where are we impacted? Where does our accounting impact our business, right? And one of the things we really learned through this practice of having a CFO is that, when we don't bill our clients on a monthly basis, right, on a regular monthly basis. And when I say a thorough billing, right, for us, we have projects all over the country, and we might have 30 or 40 projects in 30 or 40 different states at a time, and each of those have a financial responsibility, and each of those have subcontractors, and some of those great subs that we work with are mom and pop outfits. Not a lot of them, but some of them are. Some are great. They're smaller companies, small to mid-sized companies, and the owner may be the person that's actually doing the work or part of a work crew or running the work, and then they may be also doing the billing. And if we miss a billing for one of those subcontractors, right, and if we're on a 30-day basis with a client and we miss a billing for them, it might be 60 days before they get paid. And what ends up happening is we end up having subcontractors who don't want to show up on a job site because they're mad because they didn't get paid. Right. And all of a sudden our accounting world impacted our operations world. Right. And that was something that we realized that, we had this frustration happening out there, and we wouldn't have gotten that until we started looking back at our CFO, right? Our CFO said, look, at any given time with 30, 40 projects out there, there's millions and millions of dollars on the street that we've already fronted for those subs, right? And if we front too much, right, then that affects our ability to have cash flow in the business, right? All of a sudden we got payroll issues, we have, bill issues, and now we're 36, that cash flow requirement for us, with all the employees we have, that mouth has to be fed. And, go ahead and tell your employees just one payroll. Hey, we're not going to make payroll this week, and just see how many employees you maintain here. Right.
So, yeah. I think managing cash cycle, managing your cash flow forecast, managing cash, regardless of the size of the business, is a very key component that the fractional CFO, the CFO manages at all points of time. Have we captured all costs that are there? Are we billing all of the costs out? Are we ensuring that the project is moving forward at the right cadence? If your margin mix is off, that should basically be a trigger as to, hey, what's going on over here? We need to look at it. Are we missing something? Or did we get better pricing? Or what is it that happened as to why your profitability, even if it's too high, that's a question. Even if it's not, even if it's low, that's a question. But it should be, because we should be tracking according to what we've planned or what we think needs to happen. We should be doing that.
Well, and let's go back into that, because that's look, when I went to, if I'm on the other side where I have an investor, right? When I went to that investor, there's no investor out there today that's going, hey, I like you. Here's $5 million, right? All of them are very, very particular. They want to see a ramp up period. They want to see a cash flow projection. They want to see, all right, what do you want the money for, and what are you going to spend it on? And then they want you to report back on how that's actually happening, right? Here's what my projection was, but here's what my actuals are. And they want to see that impeccability in there, right? They want to find out later on that you have this big gap between the two of them, and you're mismanaging the funds that they're putting in there. That can be just as dangerous as for those that don't have investors, just as dangerous, right?
Yeah. So from a managing that gap perspective that you said, sometimes it could be that things have shifted to the right and there is a basis for that gap. As long as we can go ahead and explain the basis, great. Right. That is actually a conversation too, right? Okay, well, things have shifted to the right. Why? What happens is, once we underpin our financials where we can speak comfortably confidently to them and the investors also understand what we are reporting well, then it becomes a conversation of, okay, here is where we are. If you need us, tell us what we can solve for you. Tell us what we can help you with. Instead of every conversation, if the financials are not something that you trust, every conversation is going to be suffixed with the but. What happens is then you can start moving forward. Okay, we understand what you've done with your what has happened in the business. We understand where you are now. It's tracking in our minds. It's aligning. What is it that you're hoping to do next? What is it that you're planning to do next? And what is it that you're anticipating spending on that?
That's right.
So now you've told them what to do, and in future, now you're going to tell them what you are going to do. That's how that cycle perpetuates as far as the entrepreneur and the investor goes.
Yeah, I mean, as a CFO, the value of the projection side, the actual side, and staying in that alignment, right, to a place where you're building trust, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, my judgment is, they don't understand that value, right? Don't worry. My idea will, don't worry. The ends will justify the means. And I've watched it happen dozens. In fact, people ask me to invest in something. I'm like, look, I need to see exactly what I'm being investing in. And I want to see the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to watch that progression go on. And by the way, I sometimes may have some input on that or something I can support you in, because the entrepreneur may or may not have the experience with putting the teams together, managing the finances, and having a CFO like yourself come in and go, hey, look, let's let the numbers speak, right? You're not producing revenue where you think you are. I know that you think you're doing this, but the numbers actually tell a story that sometimes the entrepreneur doesn't want to face, but needs to, right? Because like in that, you start to go, well, if I don't face the story somewhere if I don't face the truth, right? I have now.
It's going to come out somewhere. It's going to come out somewhere. Yeah.
You're paying the piper, right? You're not getting away with it for very long. You're going to pay the piper somewhere.
Yeah. And at that point of time, you're retracing your steps all the way to where it started happening. And that's what you don't want to do. That is one of the key things that I share with my clients is to let's start out right and let's continue to do right. Stuff happens. There are slips. Let us be the ones to go ahead and say, hey, you know what, this slipped up, instead of people finding it out and kind of, digging into it. Let's go ahead and say, and it's a simple conversation of, okay, here's what happened. Here's what we move on with, kind of deal. So, it basically, it just literally sets up a tone of trust. It sets up a tone of transparency. And then what happens is, yes, you are two different constituents. You're the entrepreneur and the investor, but then you're working as a team to move forward and see to it that the objectives happen. See to it that your objectives are achieved, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, having that, so certainly talking about, you've now met with the entrepreneur. Now you start to create the systems to manage their finances, right? You're now going to do you're setting up their projections, right? Or their anticipated projections, right? Maybe it hasn't even been proven out yet. I mean, when you get involved with a new entrepreneur, how early do you want to be in the process? I mean, where do you start with the entrepreneur?
Yeah. So I have a mix is what I would say. There are people who right now are figuring funding out and I'm working with them. There are people who have had VCs already invested in them. I'm working with them too. And then there are people who've bootstrapped their businesses and, they are with me too. I will say that the bootstrap ones are to a lesser degree. My portfolio is more VCs and people who are figuring funding out. That's what it is. And that's where I am. I help them out, basically.
That's awesome. And so you start to figure out, your type of client, the client that you work with best. And now you start to put together their model. Right now you're working with that VC entrepreneur that's going out to attract a VC firm. And, before they even start to go to the marketplace, what are the tools you need to equip them with so they can go out and raise some funds, right? I've got a great idea. Like, I want to change the world. I've got this new thing that's going to make the world better. And here's what it is. I've got a team of people that I've worked with before. So these are great relationships I have. I want to bring them to the table. I've got the resumes. Now I've got the team to go approach this, but now I need some capital to go do this. where do you start so that you can communicate the capital requirements to an investor?
First, well, I'll speak from the financial side of it. First, we basically build a model. We build a model and we build projections. Then we go ahead and say, all right, then we support the numbers as to here is the extent of market which is addressable. Here is the market that we think we will adopt. Here are the reasons why. And though that can be a percentage, it's one data point, but it is shored up with a lot of support as to, here's what we've seen previous data do. Here is what our competitors are doing. Historically, this is what the trajectory has been. So we basically help them every number which is basically driving revenue or costs, we ensure that that number is supported and they have a basis behind it, And then basically we go out and then we approach people, as to here is our idea, here is how we're anticipating making. And again, here's actually, it's a little, initially there are people who will start with angels. We'll go ahead and talk to angels, and they're angels are, you get them excited about an idea, you talk to them, you give them a basic baseline of here what it's going to do. They'll invest in you, they'll invest in you, the person. That's a little bit of a different conversation than when you go out to a VC. A VC will want to see your full spread. They will want to see your model. They will want to see your numbers. They will want to see your revenue trajectory. They will want to see your cost trajectory. They will want to see what all you've incorporated in your cost. If talent is your key driver, how is it are you going to get the talent? What is it that you're going to do? Do you have people in mind? How are you going to maintain them? What are the incentives that you have? How are you going to go ahead? What is the extent of dilution that's going to take place? Okay, it's a seed. How much do we anticipate seeing, whether it is going to be a series A, B, C, what is it that we're seeing? Who else can come in? So there's a lot that goes into that. That's a whole different conversation. And the detail of that conversation is also very different.
No, I mean, they have got to be, you're going to show up with a bold statement, right? You're going to show up and go, hey, look, I've got this to change the world. They've got to see the roadmap. I mean, they're not, I mean, they as much as they believe in me or the idea, I've got to show them the path to, first of all, a pretty good return on their investment, right? They're ultimately looking for, no one's, hey, I like you, Anthony, but I want to return on my investment. Yeah. That's the idea behind it, right? So you've got to show me in really clear terms, what's my path? What's the quickest path to return on my investment? And, what can I count on? Now, I don't want to do things that are going to be, later on come back and I want to be as real as possible. I need to show them the truth of that. Right? I don't want to be too bold or make projections. I'm not Elon Musk where I can get away with saying I'm going to do something and have it happen a year later. Although, look, I love the guy. I think Elon Musk is one of my heroes of the world. He's one of the biggest thinkers and dreamers. Just sometimes his projections are off a little bit, which I get. All big ideas come with some ups and downs to getting there. But when we start with we start with the investment group, or we're starting to look for putting that package together. How are you packaging that?
So it'll be, for example, let's say we're doing a medical device. For example, let's say, all right, where are you as far as the medical device is concerned? Do you have a MVP? Where are you going to get it built? Are there any sourcing risks that are over there? What is the segment that you're going to target? What is going to be the cost to build the product? Is there maybe a hospital system? Is there a group of doctors who are going to use that prototype? Who are going to, because there's this physicians innovator group. There are people who are out to support entrepreneurs. Let's just put it that way, and then you go ahead and approach them. You share your idea with them. They are in with it, So basically you then go ahead and say, okay, here is the model. Here is how we're going to ensure that the MVP is in place. Once the MVP is built, here's who's going to adopt it. Here are the financials. This is 0, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. You basically manage your cash forecast and you have your pro forma financials, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, all of it. And then you also have your operational metrics. Those are the baseline that you would go with. And then as you talk to investors, they will come back with what they want to see, what they'd like shored up a little bit more. And that's how you keep on going and refining your model. And a place comes when then all things going well, you have the money. It's a process. It's a process,
It's a process. I mean, look, when we say there's people out there helping entrepreneurs or angel investors, look, my judgment is they're there to help themselves. They just know the platform they want. They want these young idea makers. Look, they've got the capital. They've raised capital for themselves, but they're not in a spot to they don't have the ideas anymore. Right now they have the capital, and now they want to find the right people to invest that in. And they want to see themselves. They want to see the sharp ideas and just that path. Once I can see that path and trust you, and I can build a relationship with a great, team of people that are going to go out there and boldly create new ideas. Look, every great investor, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for the bold ideas. Now they want to make sure that they've got, maybe, I'm not going to say babysitter, but maybe it is let's call it a coach. Let's call it a coach.
It's a team. I mean, literally, it's, because the entrepreneur has the passion. They want to look at the passion of the entrepreneur. They want to know their faith in that idea. Yes. And then are they being supported by a team of people, who can convey that into financial reality, I would say, so.
And they're authentic, right? They want authenticity. And I think that's where you come in, right? You really help create that authenticity to the idea. Like, look, here's exactly what we're doing. We're not hiding. We are open book to the nth degree. There's nothing in this. And the more, really, the more open I am, right?
Transparency.
The more transparency that I am, right? I can work on all of that, right? Seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly does create trust in speed to clarity, right? When I have a problem, I can see it faster. Oftentimes I make a mistake, but I tell people is I make decisions as quickly as possible. Even some of them are wrong. I find out what the bad ideas are quicker, and I get to the right ideas faster through those. So you're not always going to be perfect. You're going to have those ups and downs as an entrepreneur. Enjoy that. In fact, that's the gift of fast growth, is you're going to make some mistakes, but in transparency, you start to see that a little bit better, and you get to the ideas, and that really creates your experience or your expertise. And having a CFO like yourself, hey, I've done this. Let me just show you, how to make those adjustments. And you as a coach, Tejal, you really give me and those entrepreneurs the ability to make those decisions faster.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. That's what we aspire to do. That's what we try to do. In fact, I'll tell you one of the conversations that I was having with an entrepreneur, and I asked him, I said, hey, you know what? You've been kind of now in this since the past 2 years. What would you not have done? By hindsight being 2020, what would you not have done? And he came by and he said, well, maybe I would not have spent so much money on this particular trial, or trying to go through iterations of the product, or I don't know how much I got out of it. And I'm like, well, then go out and tell them. Go out and tell your investor.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Because they want to know that here you are a person, you are reflecting on what your actions are, and you are thinking about what you could do different and what you could do better, basically. So, and they want to know because ultimately it's a human talking to a human. It's a person talking to a person.
Yeah. Tejal, I want to jump into, look, that trust you're building, right? That trust right there is key. And look, entrepreneurs right now, listen to me. I want you to hear this. Having Tejal or a CFO, someone who's got the experience that she does or that they do, whoever the person you're going to be working with is, don't take on, look, you got expertise in your marketplace. One of the things I've learned most about being an entrepreneur is that I'm not an expert everywhere. And, my ego wants to solve some stuff. But, when she was talking about that leakage, right, that value leakage, right, when I try to take on places where I don't, I don't have the expertise. Here, I'm gonna give you one. Take us off subject for a second. I have a property over here in Oak Park, and I'm the taxes on it. It's a commercial building. I'm gonna convert it from a commercial to a residential or mixed use building. It dramatically changes taxes, and I got to add a bathroom to one of these little apartments I'm putting up there. And look, I know how to do plumbing. I could go do it on the weekends. Like I just something. The prices I got for were a little expensive, right? And then maybe let's say that overall I've got maybe a 15 or 20% increase that I didn't want to spend, right? And I'm thinking I'm going to go save myself 15 or 20%. I'll take me and a couple of guys. We'll go knock it out ourselves. Look, the time I would spend going to do that work, taking away from the work that I could do. Although my brain's like, yeah, or maybe even frustration, like I want a better price, right? Will tell me, hey, I could go do that. You know what? I'm going to end up costing myself
opportunity cost. Yep. Yeah. Opportunity cost where you're going to be spending much, much more, Yeah. So I'll tell you this, Anthony, that conversation, at least for me, has been simpler than what I expected. Because what happens is as we start out and as we have that dialogue, the entrepreneur, remember, these are agile, quick, and nimble people who are quick and decisive. They kind of get a sense of, all right, here is a person who knows what they're speaking. Here is a person who's out here to support me. And because we start out with, you need to have 1, 2, 3, 4 things in place. Do you have this in place? No. Okay, here are the steps that you need to go through to take that. Okay, are you able to get the right information out on time? No, you are not. Okay, here are the steps that you need to take in order to get that information. Who is looking at your cash? Is your cash only what is the balance at the end of the day in the bank? That's not cash management. You got to really see.
Wait. I can't be out of money. I got plenty of checks left.
So it's basically putting those building blocks in place, and that conversation, once it happens, it's kind of been fairly simple. People catch on pretty quick as to here is a person who knows what they're doing. And then it just becomes a dialogue, literally. There are some people who want to meet with me every week. Anthony, there are some people who meet with me once a quarter, even though they have their monthly financials and all. Everything that happens by email. Hey, looking for this information. Of course, it's long emails with a lot of support and all of that, but it works.
That's right.
It works. It's like, oh, I see what you're saying, literally. And they're like, his favorite word is inline, is what they say. Here's your answer to this question. Here's your answer to this question. Here's your answer to this question. So.
Well, just do it now. That frees me up as an entrepreneur to go do the bigger ideas, right? If I'm not forward facing, right now I can be forward facing, and I'm not, dealing with the energy leakers, right? The places where I just don't get it. The value leakage you talked about. I think Tejal, you really bring that into the gift, and it just takes a second to digest it. Look, entrepreneurs, do this now. Look at yourself and go, all right, why? Right? Why am I going to the energy suckers? Why am I not bringing on a financial? If it's a marginal CFO like Tejal and her company, they really give you that ability to bring on a great team of people who've done this for lots and lots of companies with lots and lots of experience, and now you can focus forward facing and do the stuff that really does inspire you and will inspire your investors. Really watch you in your magistry, as opposed to in places where you've got
I'll tell you this. Say a person starts with me, an entrepreneur starts with me. 1 or 2 months might be where we're adjusting to each other. They have that one conversation with investors, they present their financials, and they're able to see and establish that level of trust and comfort from what we've delivered. From then on, it's smooth sailing.
It's at least really, really clear. I don't know that it ever is perfectly smooth sailing.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. I don't know that it's always perfect, but at least it's You can trust me. Look, I'm going to have the ups and downs of the business, and here's exactly what we're doing. And then what happens to happen? Having a coach like you, or CFO, a marginal CFO, a proportional CFO, that
Fractional CFO.
fraction,
Yes.
fraction. Sorry, I lost the word there. Yeah, fractional CFO that can come into place and start to guide. Look, I get the benefit of having. And most of the times, those smaller companies, I don't need a full-time CFO. I don't have multiple interests. I'm not international. I've got a pretty straightforward financial plan, and it makes a lot of sense to have that. But I get a higher level skill that I would have been able to afford based on who
Yeah.
you are.
So two things happen when you bring in a fractional CFO, Anthony. Number one is you minimize your undos. What you're doing is you're starting out and you're continuing to do things right. So you very rarely you have to retrace your steps. I'm not saying that never happens, but very rarely you retrace your steps. That's number one. Number two, speaking purely from an accounting perspective that we were talking about, US GAAP, have you recognized revenue properly? Now, if we are tied into a contract, for example, people have 3 years of rent, people have 3 years of rental premises. Okay, have we captured that properly? Because now there are actually accounting standards which say things have to be recorded in a certain way, and that is the way to communicate. So basically, now your financials are communicating what exactly is happening in your business. And I know I'm repeating this again and again, but it is key that your financials communicate what is happening in your business and what is it that you are tied into, what is it that you have to, pay out, what are your actual assets, what is your liquidity. I mean, that all needs to come into play. And that conversation, should you have a place where you need to raise another round, well, that conversations need to start pretty quick. You don't start those conversations when you see the finite end of things, or if you've got $6 million, you start having those conversations pretty early when you have $1 million left in the bank, or even earlier, I would say, as to,
That's
hey,
right.
this is dwindling, here's what's coming up, we need to start thinking about what needs to happen. So the best way to find cash is when you have cash.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the gift of having a fractional CFO right there. That training, that process, that creating that temperament as an organization is something you just don't get when your head's down, building. Great, you're not thinking about that. You don't understand GAAP accounting. You don't understand capitalization. You don't understand cash flow projections. All of that stuff goes by the wayside, and a lot of the look, I've done it myself where, all of a sudden, you got your last piece of wood in your hand going, hey, I'm down on my last piece of wood here. I should have started thinking about supplies a lot earlier. And that goes for cash, right?
Yeah.
I get down to a point where cash impacts us in a way that you can't recover from. And, that's where the entrepreneur has a business that will end up in a bankruptcy and it's just a shame because there's so many great ideas that die in financial hell because they just don't do the work needed. And that's where having a coach, a CFO come in and guide them through that process. I'd like to continue this series as we work together and develop these ideas. What I'd like to do is really create some, a couple more series together where we can help the entrepreneur understand the difference between cash accounting and GAAP accounting, understand, mergers and acquisitions, somewhere where you really start to look at starting your business with the end in mind. Right. So that, as we start to grow and transition through the different parts of development of a business. All right, look, do I plan on someday of getting bought out? I want to start that in my financial planning from the very beginning. Right. How am I going to communicate to the owner the value and, the next person is going to buy me? Or do I want to start buying other people out based on cash flow? All of a sudden I'm making a lot of money. Maybe I want to find a way.
That's my vision. That's my vision. I've kind of started this company. I've started my firm with the fact of let us help people get started and then follow their progress. And when they're ready to go ahead and do something different, maybe acquire a company, maybe go IPO, that's why the couple of verticals that I have of my firm, I have a vertical for CFO services, a vertical for M&A, where I help with mergers and acquisitions, and a vertical for IPO, just so that we're able to help our clients through the entire trajectory from inception to exit. I will say this, any CFO, not just me, any CFO's job is to translate the entrepreneur's vision and the technical understanding that he has and translate that into money, because ultimately money is the language through which business happens. It is our job to take what he or she is aspiring to build and then translate into money and convey those results. If a CFO is not able to do that, I think just have a conversation. There's something that just needs to be adjusted somewhere, is what I would say. I think every good CFO will help you do that. So and that's what we're passionate about. That's we want to help people get started right, and we want to help them in their success, basically.
You are a gift. You are a gift to this world. I got to tell you, I enjoy my time with you. Just being able to have have you come on and break down these ideas that are just sometimes overwhelming to the entrepreneur. I know my entrepreneurs that are listening love this and appreciate your time. I will continue to have time with you and do some more series on it. I look forward to that coming up here. So, folks, look forward to that. Look, in the meantime, Tejal, if you want to be able to have people get a hold of you, what's the best places for them to reach you?
My website, www.congruentadvisory.com. There's a contact form in there. There's a phone number out there. We're pretty responsive. But my website is the best place for people to get in touch with us.
Thanks for being on the show. Audience, as always, if you can take a second and like and subscribe. Tejal and I makes a world of difference when we see that you forward this on to a friend. But please make sure that you hit that like and subscribe button, hit the bell. Make sure you get every week's message out there. And as always, we're grateful for you listening. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.